everyone, and welcome to another Photo Mishmash, your weekly source for any and all things photo. I'm Christina.
And I'm Toby.
And this is episode 33.
We're going to talk about new action cams from HTC and Ricoh. We're going to talk about megapixel rumors from Canon and answer the question, are vertical photos dead?
Okay. You screwed up last week.
It's all my fault?
Yes.
It is all your fault. So let's talk a little bit about that. I realized as we finished recording last week that I had left a funky setting on in Magic Lantern. Now, it's kind of ironic. I've been playing around a little bit with Magic Lantern. Actually, that's not ironic. I've been playing around with Magic Lantern, put out a video this past week, so as part of our week in review, talking about the features that I liked about Magic Lantern. And one of them was this really cool feature where you could do frames per second override. So normally I record my podcasts at 24 frames. I actually shoot almost all of my videos at 24 frames a second. Just works for me. It's all I need. But what you can do in Magic Lantern is say, actually record at a much slower frame rate, which is the equivalent of basically shooting a time lapse. So it's throwing out a bunch of the different frames that it doesn't need, and it's still making a movie file, that's why it's a nifty feature. You don't have to take all of these individual images, bring them into Lightroom, and then export them into some time-lapse app that's going to make a movie file for you. It all happens in the camera, and there are actually other systems that do this for you. There are other camera manufacturers that do this, but Magic Lantern adds it. I've been playing around with it. One of the reasons to use it is it helps low light performance of the back of the camera, the LCD. So I'd actually lowered it because the night before I'd been shooting some star pictures and was just kind of testing around with the LCD, and I left that setting on. It meant two things. One, that I recorded at 10 frames per second, which is a very herky-jerky motion style. And two, the camera throws out the audio file, doesn't record any audio, which makes synchronization really difficult. In fact, nearly impossible. I said, well, I'll take this clip, shrink it down. It'll look a little funny, but if I shrink it down to 29 minutes and 59 seconds, that should be the same length of time that the actual clip wanted to be. And I could see from my mouth moving, I could sync it, but it would get out of sync again. It wouldn't stay in sync over time because it's just different frame rates. So why not have a backup camera running until the 11-minute mark? Well, and actually I haven't completely learned from this mistake, because I'm testing Sony's cameras, I'm not ecstatic about their battery life. I've got the A7S and the A7R running right now, and I thought, well, I'm not going to start them right away because I don't need a camera B right away. There have been other times on this podcast where we have done a lot of other camera angles. It's a lot of fun. I think it does add some polish to this, but the amount of post-production required to say, okay, I'm going to switch this camera angle now, and just to make sure everything is in sync and working, at this point isn't really quite worth it. We might revisit that more in the future, but we've kind of settled back on a camera A and a camera B, and really camera B's only role is to fill that brief gap where camera A restarts. Though sometimes we've switched to it. So I didn't start those right away because I was worried about battery life, and that's actually a valid concern with the Sonys. Today I've gone ahead and started them, and I'm actually running two because I have the A7R and the A7S, and we'll talk about why I have both of those in a minute. But yes, so the big takeaway from this is, well, I should always have a backup, and it should always be running from the beginning. None of that stuff of waiting partway because you're worried about battery life. But it also begs the question of, well, let's stick to the point. And the other way to go about is, and I'm doing better about this, is making lists so they're prepared. And saying, here is, check that your camera has a formatted memory card, because that's actually bitten me on other videos before. I've popped the memory card in, started filming, and halfway through I hear the camera stop. recording and I'm wondering why. It's because the memory card filled up because it had a bunch of junk on it from some previous shoot. So a quick checklist is even, at some point, most of these things are going to be a mental checklist. Okay, have I done this and this and this? But certainly when you're trying to be professional, and if you're out there shooting in a professional environment, it's not a bad idea to have a written down checklist that you go through to make sure you're not missing anything that's going to cause you to waste your time, waste somebody else's time, or even worse, screw up in an irreplaceable way. Wedding videographers or photographers and things like that. Like we have a checklist every day before we step out the door for a wedding to make sure that we have everything we need and backups to photograph a wedding. Yeah. That's not a fun note to start on because I certainly want, this to be polished and professional, but I also sometimes use it as testing grounds, and so I'm mixing and matching that, but I need to make sure that, one, my camera is set normally and I don't have no funny issues going on. You're quiet today.
Well, you're talking a lot.
Okay. And I might sound a little funny. I don't know if I'll be able to fix this in post or not, but I have a little bit of a head cold. So, it's here. I'll try sound a little more nasally and stuffed up than I usually do. So we'll see if I can fix that in post. Probably not.
How could you fix nasaliness in post?
Well, you have the equalizer. Graphic equalizer for audio, and I've been successful at other times when their sound is a little funny to adjust it, bring the bass down a little bit, get rid of the kind of like low level stuff. Yeah, and I'm not even very good at it. So you think about, this is why the Oscars have awards for sound engineer. Because just like editing, just like photography, just like the visual side of things, the control you have over sound is pretty amazing as well. So, that's what happened last week. And I still love Magic Lantern. We're still using it because of that automatic restart. That's a nice feature that we like. And there are some other features too. And I'll be talking, the interest on the video I put out this week has been very good, so I will be talking more about Magic Lantern in the future.
Sweet. So,
and I'm drinking tea.
We asked everybody a question last week.
Mm-hmm.
What should you take to Italy?
Yes.
And they said what?
They said nothing groundbreaking except for Dev. I think it was Dev. Basically, either a small, high-end point-and-shoot camera like the RX100, Sony RX100. That's got that 1-inch sensor in there. Very pocketable, shoots very good quality video, easy to use. You're not going to be, when you go out later in the night, you're not have to worry about lugging your big camera. Good. Somebody mentioned similar in that respect to A5100 from Sony, which is interchangeable. I love the A6000. It's very nice. GH4 got a couple of votes, and a couple of votes for the Sony A7s. And I reply, which one? Because we got the A7, we got the A7S, we got the A7R. And I have to be honest, that is the direction I'm leaning. Again, I don't know if I can make this happen, but that is why I have both of those cameras in-house right now for testing. The A7S is only 12 megapixels, but it's low light capabilities. You saw those fireside pictures at the wedding the other day. ISO 8000, ISO 12800. They're usable images. And it's just fantastic, and it's so small.
I'm not too crazy about the focusing system on them. I felt like a lot of those images were really soft, and it is really quiet though. It's like remarkably quiet.
Well, you got to make that distinction. You haven't heard the A7R yet. It is not quiet.
Oh, okay.
But the A7S has a silent shooting mode that when you shoot wide open, the aperture blades don't need to move, and there is not a sound, not even the tiniest bit of a sound. It's pretty impressive. If you're shooting at an aperture other than wide open, you do hear those blades go sh, but it's still pretty quiet, and it's nice, and it's just so small. I mean, it's this, it's smaller than this thing, and it's got a full frame sensor in there. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute as well. And then I think I was trying to get to Dev. Yeah, Dev had, old manual film SLR, 1 prime, 1 zoom, 3 filters, 10 rolls of color negative, 10 rolls of black and white, or a recent digital like a Pentax K50 but shoot only in JPEG.
Why just in JPEG?
See if these tools become a detriment or actually help you enjoy your trip without worrying about amazing video, high ISO, megapixels, and shooting in RAW. I like that term, megapixels.
I'm debating just bringing like film cameras because I think about what people did before digital and they just took film cameras. And even if they screwed up, they just lived with that. And it's really hard to screw up film. It's really hard to overexpose it. So I don't know. I worry that I might not be able to take pictures that I can see immediately and pictures that I can share immediately. But at the same time...
I will let you borrow my camera sometime if you would like to only take film.
I might do that.
Wow.
Except, which camera do you mean?
Well, the 5D Mark III's coming.
Oh, okay.
You're not a big fan of the Sony so much, are you? The focusing system is okay. They're not speed demons there, and the interface is a little funny. But I tell you, I've been shooting in the dark with the Sony, and the buttons, with only just a couple of days of use, the buttons are comfortable. I know where they are. I can push them without seeing them. It's fine. I can live with it based on the size savings, the weight savings, and the quality, or the low light. So
cool. So we talked about that. We talked about Magic Lantern, right?
We did. We talked a little bit about Magic Lantern. Did I actually start screen flick? Yes, I did. Great. We talked a little bit about Magic Lantern this past week, and
just
said
now.
Well, yeah, we're in the week in review, and we're saying we talked about Magic Lantern. Pretty nifty. More videos coming. Yeah.
Great. You've been taking lots of star pictures recently. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about that and what lenses you've been using for that?
I did. Oh, people keep asking, though, about Italy, where we're actually going. Can you give a kind of a rundown of where we're going? Do you remember off the top of your head?
Yeah. So I don't remember specifically which towns we're going to be at, but we are going to arrive in Milan because we're going to join the trip a few days into it.
Yeah, we have 2 weddings, so we couldn't leave at the same time they all were leaving.
Yeah. So we are going to arrive in Milan and take a train to Liguria, which is near the Cinque Terre, which is on the coast of Italy, but it's a little bit northern coast. And then from there, we're going to kind of go around Naples and visit the areas and towns near Mount Vesuvius, which will be super cool. We're going to Rome, and we are going to the Amalfi Coast as well. So the Amalfi Coast, actually based on the pictures that I'm seeing and the videos that we've watched, are similar to the place where we're arriving, which is Liguria, and where the Cinque Terre are. But it's in a different spot. So I think the climate should be slightly different, maybe. And but similar scenery, really pretty, really cool. Yeah, if you're interested, just look up the Amalfi Coast.
Right. And also, Giuseppe wondered, and I'd been kind of thinking about this in the back of my mind, but are people interested in a daily video while we're traveling of what we've done that day? I would work hard to make sure there's photo tips and photo information in those videos. It wouldn't just be everything that we're eating and drinking, although there may be some of that aspect as well. But I've never been to Europe. I've traveled in North America fairly extensively, but
in Central America,
but never to Europe. We're very, very excited. So let me know in the comments if you'd be interested. And if a bunch of people say no way, I might do it anyway, because it's my channel.
You do what you want.
I do what I want.
You never do it right.
There's a right way to do it? Okay. Star photos. Back to star photos real quick, though.
Yes.
Because I'm working on a how-to star photos tutorial, both capturing the Milky Way and also doing those cool pictures like this, which is with the spiral using trigger trap. So it ties in nicely with what I've been talking about recently. But I wanted to come back and talk to you all because there was a discussion when I first reviewed the Canon 10-18, which starts at f4.5. Is it okay, or can you take star pictures with this camera? With this lens on a camera like the T5i or the 70D? And the question being, can you, because it starts at f4.5?
Oh, totally.
Really?
Yes.
Have you been out in the dark trying to take pictures of the stars?
No.
Okay.
But can't you? I mean, can't you just leave your shutter speed or your shutter open for as long as you want?
Yes. Well, remember though, the 500 rule is, and remember the print that we got for Alex and Alex's mom. Mm-hmm. The stars were not dots; they were starting to be streaks.
Yes.
So you'll run into that. If you want streaks and you want the Milky Way, you have to stay at shorter shutter speeds. You have to stay the 500 rule, which means you take 500 and divide it by your focal length. You got to also account for the crop multiplier, and that gives you your maximum shutter speed before those dots will start to turn into streaks.
That sounds like a lot of math and not so much fun.
It's not bad. It's basically 20 seconds with most things. So the answer is yes, you can. I have an example image right here, taken with this very camera, this very lens, at 10, at f4.5. I actually don't remember what my shutter speed was now. It was probably about 25 seconds or so. ISO 3200. You do have to go to a pretty high ISO because of that f4.5 if you want to keep them dots. If you're doing the longer, don't care if there's streaks because you're going to put them together into the star trails, absolutely not an issue because you can leave the shutter open much longer, as Christina was saying.
And remember, you can always take it, if you're shooting raw, you can take it into Lightroom and punch it up a little bit and bring your highlights up. And so even if it looks a little bit dark and doesn't look the way that you want it right from the start, you can still do something about it.
Yep, it's tricky though because ISO 3200, and below that it was really pretty dark, not very exciting worth talking about. Above that, you're really starting to get so noisy that you're starting to not be able to tell stars from noise. The other big issue, and you have this with all of the Canon lenses that are the new kit lenses, is the STM, no hard stop. So you don't know when you're hitting infinity focus. There's no markings, there's no feel to it. The 40mm, which I'm actually using on the Sony a7R right now, does have a little bit of a feel. You can kind of hear and feel when it gets to infinity focus, and you can work from that. But these guys just spin and spin and spin. But all you need is some little light off in the distance that's not stars, a little bit brighter, a house light. There was a house about, 600-700 yards away from me, and I just shined it towards their, I pointed the camera towards their window, got focus, and that distance is enough that you're in infinity focus and the stars are in focus as well. So the answer is yes. The 10-18, you can shoot stars with it occasionally. If star photography is going to be your main thing, you should think about the Tokina 11-16 because of that aperture. That wider aperture lets in more light and lets you get those shorter shutter speeds to avoid blurring of the stars.
All right, so we're going to briefly talk. I can't believe we've already been talking for 23 minutes. The RAV power.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to mention that I think Amazon's a little tricky on this sometimes. These guys, I talked about them this past week. They're fantastic. They're powering our Zoom right now. These are these USB batteries. They seem to be at the same price now that they were on the Lightning deal earlier this week. So the Lightning deal happened, great price. Lots of you bought them. Thank you. But if you missed that, the good news is they seem to be at the same price. You can get a 15,000 milliamp one for $37. We were at the airport this week traveling. I was curious. I went over and I looked. They had a 12,000 one made by a very well-known brand.
Was it well-known?
Yeah, it's the Mophie.
Oh, okay.
The Mophie juice packs. 130, I don't know why I talk like that. $130 for 13,000 milliamps. Here you got 15,000 with a little flashlight for 37. Link to buy right down below. That's all. Moving on.
It's a really good deal. I mean, we get so much power out of those things.
We do. We use them a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I bought a new camera this week, and it's not, I mean, it's a little bit exciting. It's this Canonet, which is a film camera. It's a 35 millimeter. What I'm most excited about is that I got a really good deal for it on eBay. So it doesn't have a battery, so I'm gonna have to kind of, you can buy the hearing aid batteries and kind of stuff them in there with a little piece of foil or paper.
Oh, really? Because
yeah, they don't make the batteries anymore. And that battery is just strictly for the meter, to make the meter work. So I'm gonna have to kind of, or like MacGyver something. And but yeah, I'm excited to shoot some film with it, some 35 millimeter film.
it's a fixed focal length lens. How long?
Yes, 40 millimeters.
4 millimeters. Maximum aperture of
1.7.
1.7.
And it's pretty cool. It's a rangefinder.
What does that mean?
So it means that you don't look, doesn't have a mirror, so you don't look through the lens. You look through this little spot right here. And through some, I guess it's got a little bit of a tiny lens. Through some like magic, you are able to line up. So when you look through, you can move this lever and you'll see like two images, and as you move the lever, they'll line up when it's in focus, when whatever your subject is in focus. So it'll be fun to use it. Yeah.
And so you're thinking you might take this and your contacts.
Yes, I've just discovered today that my contacts have some funky stuff in the lens that I would like to get checked out if possible before we leave, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I may not take my contacts, and if I don't, then I will just take my 5D and this.
Okay. Great.
All right.
So
let's move on to new.
Okay. This last thing is, I posted this picture on Instagram this week of this my dad's old games, pinball game, erector set, and I was thinking about when you're saying they don't make the battery for this anymore, and somebody said, I said, what are the toys of today going to look this antiquated in 50 years? And somebody said it's going to be a picture of an iPad. Which is probably true. And will we be able to turn on these iPads? All their batteries will be dead. Will we be able to find the right plug for them anymore in 50 years? It's a little sad. Whereas you can still play with this pinball game.
It is a little sad.
So
Somebody brought up an interesting point about the 5Ds, how they're such, popular cameras, and whether or not they're going to be kind of like the classic cameras of in 10 years or whatever. So if, they raced the point, or they brought up the idea that maybe those who have them should keep them because they might go up in value with age. But then when you think about electronic components, batteries, sensors that might burn up and then they won't make the parts to replace them, shutters.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, that's true.
So we talked about this before? This is kind of going off track, but have we talked about shutter count and stuff?
We did.
Okay. Well, I just found out today what the shutter count for my 5D Mark III is, because I sent my camera in for a clean and check. And
for a repair.
And a repair because the hot shoe became loose. So I was told that my camera actuations, my shutter actuations are 163,000.
And you've never really done any time lapses with that camera, have you?
No.
No.
You probably have.
No. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I've never used your camera for a 15,000 picture time lapse.
But, yeah, the point being that they asked me if I wanted to change it, and if I had just done the clean and check, they wouldn't have charged me anything. But to replace the shutter, they charged me like $300. So, but the camera's fine. I mean, I think that until it fails, since I have a backup camera, until it fails, then I can just...
Right. So the shutter life expectancy of the 5D Mark III is 150,000 actuations. Yeah. Yours is at 163.
And I looked it up, I Googled it really quickly just to see what other people were saying. And a lot of people said, my camera's failed at 20,000 actuations. So it really is kind of a random thing.
Yeah.
So
and that's right.
Yeah, I'm just going to push my luck and see what
Yep. Well, speaking of Canon...
Knock on wood, though. I bet. Let's hope it doesn't fail this weekend for some reason. That would suck.
That would. But you have backups. Speaking of Canon, though, my 70D is back. And I don't think it's fixed. They replaced the mirror assembly. Actually, that's not the exact language. I'm looking around for the paper. I don't see it within reach. But they actually replaced the physical part of the camera, and my quick testing, only had a little bit of time to test before we started recording this podcast. It doesn't seem fixed to me. So I need to do some more testing. It's not what I want to spend my time doing.
Yeah.
Testing.
At what point are you going to put this to death? Like, at what point are you going to be like...
I mean, at some point, I'm going to want to sell this camera to somebody else.
True.
And I'm not going to want to sell it knowing that it certainly has this issue.
They're going to flag us over there at the Canon Repair Center.
They can't flag us because this camera has an issue. And it's clear. You can see it from the distance that we're recording the 5D Mark III. I shot 5 pictures of this wall on live view. They were sharp. 5 picture center focus point. They were all over the place. So soft it makes you go, ah. So then I shot at closer distances, which I think are much closer to their testing environment, and it wasn't so bad.
But you told them to test at longer distances.
I did tell them to test at longer distances.
Do you think they're getting lazy?
I don't know.
I mean, they know that you're going to come...
I'm getting frustrated, though.
You know that you're going to test it again, so why wouldn't they just test it and...
I really don't know.
You just give up.
I think give up might be part of it, or I think some tech who's new, doesn't know what they're doing, says, here, I put in a new mirror box. I'm sure it's fine.
But is it the mirror box?
Well, I think that's part of the focusing assembly. I'm sorry, I can reach. Okay.
Magic.
Give me that magic. All right. The interface assembly was replaced. Whatever the interface assembly was. I'm glad I went and got that piece of paper because I couldn't remember that. So, you'll hear more. I don't want to talk about it anymore right now. I'm frustrated.
Thank goodness. I don't want to hear about it either. Okay, so let's move on to news now.
News!
Adobe announces Photoshop Elements 13 and Premiere Elements 13.
Yep.
I've never used Adobe Elements, but I've heard great things.
Yeah, it's like Photoshop Lite. So there's 2 reasons I think you would go with this. One, if you really have no interest in ever shooting RAW, the Photoshop Elements gives you organization. It gives you good, decent editing tools, and it gives you some aspects of Photoshop that Lightroom does not. Mm-hmm. That's one reason. Second reason, kind of tied to that, is this is a standalone program you can just buy and have. So there are people who really don't like the idea of renting from Adobe. But as far as raw engine goes, power of processing, speed and efficiency of processing, Lightroom blows it out of the water. And that $9.99 a month deal gives you both Lightroom and full Photoshop. So not just some of the tools you get, but the whole kit and caboodle, as they say.
So for today's Here's the Thing, here's the thing about Lightroom, is that the larger your library is, the more edits that you make to your photos, the more, what would you call it? It's not, what's the word that I'm looking for?
Non-destructive?
No, not non-destructive. Like brush adjustments that you make with brushes, or correcting.
So selective adjustments.
Selective adjustments, yes. The more selective adjustments you make in Lightroom, the slower your catalog becomes, because it stores that information within the metadata of that photo. So that increases the size of the catalog and the previews, and that slows down Lightroom. So yes, to some extent, Lightroom is quicker, faster, but to another extent, if you're editing a small number of photos, not like hundreds of photos at a time, you may just be better off using Adobe Elements, because you can open each individual image and close it, and then open another one and just work on one image at a time. So
True. So if you don't have to process, but still you don't get those tools that allow you to take a group of images and say, I shot all of these in the same place, the white balance is off a little, let me fix this one, and now I can just apply that fix to all 10.
Yes, yeah. I think you might be able to do something like that. I mean, they make presets for Adobe Camera Raw.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Adobe Camera Raw comes with, as part of Adobe Elements. So you are able to apply presets using Adobe Camera Raw. So
I don't think you have easy access to those tools in this program.
really?
Yeah, it really is like iPhoto, even a little bit under that in some respects, as far as that. But
We'll have to explore.
let's hit the real quick the new features. A photo merge compose tool for copying people or objects from one photo into another. That's very Photoshop-like. Intelligent crop suggestions that detect faces and horizons and add effect variations that add more options to existing photo enhancements. Now, Photoshop Elements, that's Photoshop Elements. Premiere Elements is the video side. And you can buy both of these together in this little suite, $120 for both of them. And it's good video capabilities, good video editing capabilities. Very iMovie-like with some stabilization is the big new mode to design to smooth out shaky footage. All right.
All right. So, Sigma interview. What the heck does that mean?
Sigma interview. So I posted on Facebook, so we're just going to talk about this very briefly. But, there was an interview with the CEO of Sigma this past week. And he was very candid about some things and the fact that in the past they've been really focused on the low-end market. And I don't want to talk so much about the interview, but briefly talk about a little bit of the stigma regarding third-party lenses.
Yeah.
I think that is out there. It's not as strong as it used to be because of lenses like the 50 and the 35 Art series from Sigma. These two lenses are fantastic, folks. They blow the Canon versions out of the water.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So
I can't wait till they release an 85.
Yeah, that's rumored to be coming sometime. Hopefully, maybe a little bit later this year or early next year. But the 85 one too. You think it'll be a lot better than the 85 one too?
Well, it'll just be faster.
Yeah. People ask every once in a while, okay, so it's sharp, but how's focus? Focus is better. How are colors? Colors are better. Contrast is better. Anyway, so they're really focusing on the higher end market, and this third-party Sigma, it's been there because older Sigma lenses, older Tamron lenses, their quality control wasn't always the best, and it was quite possible to get a copy that just was not great, and you would have to send it in, get a new one. Not great, send it in, get a new one, kind of like my 70D right now. You could get a good one that was sharp right out of the box, right as soon as you bought it, but it was, you gambled a little bit. And also as a result of that, your resale value for third-party lenses often went down pretty quickly. Whereas if you looked over on the Canon side, you buy one of these, the 70-200 or the 85, you go buy a used one, you save maybe $100, $150 sometimes if there's no issues with it like scratches or really banged up, because people recognize that that's a good lens and it holds its value very well. The question is, are these new lenses going to hold their value very well? 35 and the 50 from Sigma, are they going to resell at new prices?
Yeah, why wouldn't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know. I've heard from people that are concerned that they might not. People have written me and said, what do you think the resale value is going to be? That's right, there's no way. They are just that fantastic.
Yeah.
People are going to want these lenses. They're hard to get a hold of right now still.
Yeah. I mean, unless for whatever reason your lens got really soft over time. That's the only way that I can imagine that the resale value would go down. But that's unlikely to happen. So, yeah. I mean, I am really, really impressed. And I used to be a Canon purist, pretty much. Ever since I got the 85 1.2, I just didn't want to have anything else to do with any other lens. But comparing the Canon 50 and the Sigma 50, pretty huge difference.
And we've talked to other people too. It's not...
Yeah, it's not just us.
It's not just us. Yep. Okay.
So, great.
Something remarkable is coming.
Something remarkable?
From HTC. An action cam.
We skipped around.
Did we skip around? Oh, I'm sorry. It was the next tab.
No, we didn't. Just kidding.
So this brings up, we talked about action cams in the past. We talked about that new Panasonic wearable cam. And the fact that I thought their marketing for it was idiotic because it was some dude riding the trolley around in San Francisco and chatting up a lady at the cafe. That's what he was doing with his action cam.
Yeah.
And HTC has got a similar camera coming. It's rumored to look a little like a periscope or maybe one of those military flashlights, you know, the ones that bend at the end and you hold it like that. And I'm thinking now, though, maybe their marketing is better. Well, first, you can compare and contrast it with GoPro's marketing. People are jumping out of cars, maybe that. People are jumping out of airplanes, skydiving in crazy ways, crazy surfing through the bluest and clearest water at the same time in the Caribbean. I mean, just some amazing footage that is so crisp, so contrasty, and gorgeous. But it is all of this very adventurous, very out there stuff that I think a lot of people look at these and say, well, I'm never going to do that. I don't need one of these. So maybe these companies saying you want to wear it while you're chatting with a girl at the cafe, maybe? Yeah, I know. Not
so
really.
Creepy. That is so creepy.
Well, that's what the Panasonic wearable camera showed. So,
well, yeah. But, okay, so I just watched this video for this one.
Yep.
And first of all, image quality. Like, why wouldn't they put that video through at least some...
Yeah, there's several pieces of it where the quality really is not impressive.
It's pretty terrible.
It's bad. Yep.
I mean, I guess, you know, there's something for, like, really, really honest advertising. I guess I commend them for that. But...
Right? But if this
at the same time,
if this is their best clips that they're showing us... Right. What's the average person going to get?
Right. I'm just mesmerized watching this video. Apparently I can't watch this and talk at the same time. But one cool thing as I watch the video is that I think the idea and the differentiation, the point of differentiation for this camera might be that it is wearable. And actually seeing some of the video, it's like, you know, you look back and you're wearing it, and it's kind of like you're re-experiencing certain moments. Because it looks very realistic. It's like, you know, like there's that part of the video where like the guy's like looking at the instrument that's being played and then like looks up. So that's kind of cool.
Yep.
And
it needs to be cheap. It needs to be much cheaper than the GoPro to make it worthwhile.
And it's not huge like the GoPro. Like you don't have to wear it on a helmet on your head or something like really dorky looking. Yep. So that's pretty cool.
Okay.
And then Ricoh.
Yeah.
Is that how you say that?
Yeah, Ricoh.
That one's really ugly.
I like it.
It's so ugly.
It looks manly. It looks like I want to head out into the backcountry with that action camera.
Really? And what? And like bounce it? Like why does it have to be that rugged looking?
Because then I know if I drop it, it'll be okay. So its main plus over the GoPro is that it's got an embedded screen in it.
That's neat.
Which the Verb does too, which we have, the Garmin Verb. And it is really useful. There are a lot of times when I'm setting up the GoPro and I've got to hold my cell phone in one hand to see what it sees, and there's a little bit of that Wi-Fi lag, so you say, okay, is this the shot I want? Then you wait for it. While you're waiting, my hand drifts, and like, oh no, I got to bring it back.
This looks like a nice screen though.
Yes, and that's the thing, the Verb screen is really just allows you to compose your shot. It's very low quality, but you know, it's good enough. It's all you need to see if you're framing it correctly. And that's all I'd like sometimes on the GoPro. And yes, you can get the LCD back, of course, but that adds more bulk and adds more price. This looks like quite a nice screen, so I wonder how much that's going to impact battery life. But it looks very nice, and it's coming in at a price slightly lower than the higher end GoPros as well. You know, all these markets the GoPro is just like plonked itself there. It's the sumo wrestler in the ring, and all of these other little guys are like pinging off of it. But there's room for them, and they just, if you want accessories, it's kind of on the same side as Canon, and GoPro has all of these accessories and things like that. I'm starting to repeat myself. I mentioned this stuff before. So, that's all. Those two new action cameras.
Okay, here's a yawn part of the news. Rumors.
You're just trying to add all these new segments in. You have to make the graphics for them.
Segments within the segments. Okay, so rumors about the 5D Mark III, which I
5D Mark
5D
III?
Mark IV, which I should be excited about, except these are just rumors. So until the actual camera is announced, I don't want to hear anything about it.
Okay.
It's pointless. So just kind of plug my ears while you talk about it.
Well, Canon is saying there's a bunch of rumors floating around that we may see a very high megapixel camera from Canon before the end of the year, maybe 46 megapixels. The CEO is acknowledging that there are other leaders in the imaging world that have passed Canon as far as that goes. And mentioned that we will see better mirrorless offerings, and I'm hearing rumors of maybe a different mount, which isn't very exciting. Not necessarily for that mirrorless, but it does seem connected, and that would probably mean a full frame mirrorless, or at least an APS-C sized mirrorless. So, actually the EOS M is APS-C, isn't it? Isn't it? I think it is. But it has a different mount. So another mount that would be full frame. That's right. That's why they're full frame. So, we'll see. 5D Mark IV is going to be sometime next year, maybe 4K. I think it really depends on when in the year it's announced. If it's early on, I doubt Canon will put 4K in it. But if it's later in the year, then there'll be enough 4K out there that Canon will have to. Right? Right, Canon? Right? You'll have to. Okay?
We'll see. But we will continue speculating until then. The Tamron 15 to 30 is starting to get tested with 0.28.
F2.8?
Oh, yep. You wrote 0.28.
No, 0.28.
Very different.
Very different. F2.8. And, well, let me ask you, on a full frame camera, are you interested in the focal length from 15 to 30?
No.
Why not?
Because too much distortion and, I mean, unless you've got like a really perfect scene in front of you, you're just going to include lots of distracting elements that aren't going to help your photos. So, no.
Yeah, it's very wide, and there's certainly uses for that wide, but, you know, well, let's click off the quick other positives real quick. Maximum aperture or constant aperture, f2.8, VC, vibration compensation, and of course full frame. Looks like build quality is very nice, but that is very wide, and it's got a bubbly outer glass element, which means no filters, unless you hook up some crazy conkin filter system that's going to stick out and you can slide in. You're not going to be able to just buy a circular polarizer or a neutral density, variable neutral density. So that cuts down on the use of this, especially for landscape photographers, which I think would be the first person thinking about a lens this wide. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
Definitely.
Okay.
So this a rumor photo of a Sony full frame sensor with an electronic global shutter. So why don't you tell us what that is? Because I have no idea what it is.
So it's really interesting how our cameras work. Most of them work by reading. So, you know, everything opens up. This is for video, really. Everything opens up, light's hitting the sensor, and the sensor or the electronics read the sensor line by line. They go down like a typewriter in the old days with that sound effect. Down the sensor, reading it. And that allows, well, it's just how it works. One of the issues it causes is the rolling shutter, which is where if you are moving back and forth recording video, straight lines become kind of wavy, because when you're over here, the sensor at the top has read that point, and then as you move and it's slowly reading down the sensor, the bottom of the line is now kind of over here and it's read it over there. So you get this rolling shutter. If you could have a sensor where when you start recording, it just reads the whole sensor, reads the whole sensor, reads the whole sensor, you're not going to have any of that rolling shutter. It also will allow, with flash, remember there are times, I remember way back when we were starting out, we were not paying attention to flash sync speed, and you get only half of the image lit by your flash
So
at certain high
sync
speeds. So high sync speeds, because
Awesome.
again, it could be in sync with the flash and read all of it at the instant the flash flashes, and not just... So let me finish that. So if you're at a very high shutter speed without a flash in high sync speed mode, you will have a dark image, a half dark, half bright image, or it might not be half, it might be somewhere, because when the sensor is being read, that flash is short enough that only part of the reading gets captured while it's on, and then it's off, and then the rest of the reading further down gets dark.
But that's because of the shutter. That's because the shutter opens and closes.
No, well, actually, it's a combination. At the really high speeds, it can be how the sensor is read.
You sure?
I am, because I did a little research to talk about this more knowledgeably.
So my question to you is now, when recording video with an electronic global shutter, will the file sizes be huge because it's recording in a different way?
No, because it's separate. I mean, you're still ending up at the end of a set period of time with the same amount of information. It's just, well, actually, no, you're right. It's going to be a higher bit rate. Yeah, these files are going to be higher, bigger, but it shouldn't be a massive difference.
All right.
Yeah.
They're making bigger memory cards anyway, so...
They are. Remember, you can buy that, what was it, the 512 gigabyte one for $700?
Yeah. Okay, so we are ready to move into our discussion, which is going to be not that long today, or this week.
Mm-hmm.
This article from Consumer...
We have two. Did I write down? You didn't see that, okay. I always like to leave something out of the rundown so that I can confuse Christina.
It's really fun.
What should you do with your summer photos? So this is an article by Consumer Reports from a few days ago or a few weeks ago now. But I thought it'd be great to run through their steps that they talk about because I think a lot of us here in the Northern Hemisphere, summer is over. We probably took a lot of photos, a lot of fun family memories. I did. And now what are you doing with them? And I think it'd be good to run through these.
Yeah. So first on the list is back them up,
Yes.
which is a good idea. You should have a backup drive somewhere, maybe even off-site.
Right. Now remember, the hardcore people say you're not truly backed up unless you followed the 1, 2, 3 rule. That is that you are backed up in one off-site location, 2 different physical medias, 3 complete copies. So 1 on your computer, 1 backed up to a different media, 1 backed up on an off-site location. If you've done all of that, then you're truly backed up and you can sleep okay at night.
Yep.
And there's a lot of great Crash Plan, Black Blaze, Back Blaze, Carbonite.
Yeah. Crash Plan's a really good option, I think.
Which then lets you decide exactly who you're going to pay to actually put them in the cloud, but gives you that option as well.
And it gives you the option to actually back up to a friend's computer for free.
That's right.
So, it might take a little while, but you could send like a bulk.
And they're all encrypted.
Of some of your images to somebody, and then just do incremental backups from there, and I think that's pretty manageable.
Yeah.
So number 2 is curate and edit them. Wait, people aren't doing that?
You're on Facebook, right? You see so-and-so gets back from vacation, and there are 160 photos from their week-long vacation.
Yeah, less so. I feel like I'm seeing less and less of that.
Right.
But yes, curate them. If you were going to share pictures with people and expect them to look through them, which is why you would share them on social media in the first place, at least I think, you should curate them because nobody wants to see 5 pictures of the same thing. People have short attention spans and get bored.
Yep.
Number 3 is share them.
Edit them too. Give them a little punch.
Yeah.
A little clarity. Crop out distracting bits. Everybody will think you're a better photographer. It's better if you shot it right in the first place, but after the fact, cropping is fine.
Yep.
Okay.
Number 3 is share them online. So, yeah, do that.
It's pretty straightforward. Where should they share them online?
I don't know, wherever you want. Facebook,
Google, yes.
Plus.
And Google, one of the things that Google Plus does is it creates that highlight album. You throw up 200 pictures, and it will decide that some subset is more worth looking at than the others, and we'll share people that, and you could say all photos are that, which is...
That's true.
It's a nice feature.
Yeah. But yeah, Instagram, I love Instagram
I know.
nowadays.
But it's not really the place after you've come back from
Right,
vacation or
that's
summer.
true.
That's more share as you go, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm actually annoyed whenever I see people post more than 4 or 5 images right in a row. Because I'm like, that's not how you use Instagram. It's on my list. Remember, I self-proclaimed myself to be the king of Instagram and had rules that no one is listening to.
Who is posting 5 pictures in a row?
I don't see it too often, but it happens every once in a while.
Okay.
So you agree that that's annoying?
I mean, if they're really interesting pictures, I don't care.
How about 3 pictures in a row of a fat cat in a little box?
That sounds awesome.
Good. Check my Instagram. It's there.
Okay. Number 4, make some prints. Yes, do that. Make an album. Go to Artifact Uprising. Make
Blurb. Yep, we love them, and it's so much fun to have a little book on your table, on your shelf, for friends come over. It's just, in this digital age, there's a lot to be said for that tangibleness.
Yep.
A calendar. Calendar's
nice.
fun.
I mean, pictures look so much nicer when they're printed. It's so fun to get a bunch of pictures and just look through them.
This is going to bring up the question of trying to get your pictures to look like the same on the computer. The one tip is don't edit your computers at full brightness on your monitor.
Yes.
About half brightness.
Maybe even less.
Yep. And we like Impix for printing. Shutterfly's decent. Walgreens, not such a big fan of. Walmart, really mixed results. Costco, I've had very good results with for printing.
Here's just something you can do. Print a set of samples that are totally, I would say, I guess, unedited, and print them and then compare them against your monitor if you don't have a monitor calibration system. You probably won't get them to be exact, but it will allow you to sort of have an expectation of what your photos will look like. Give you a better idea. So, but yeah, places like, I don't know, like pharmacies or like Walmart, they don't do an awesome job at printing. So don't send your pictures to them. Adorama
Pix too.
Bay Photo, send your pictures to them, and they'll look.
They cost a little bit more, but if you're going through the effort to do it,
cents more.
It's worth it. Yeah, that's true.
Cents more.
Yep.
Create a photo book.
Oh, we got ahead of ourselves. Okay.
Yeah, we did. But yeah, that's also really fun. It's fun also to have something that you can just pull out and really flip through, as opposed to like having to dig through files in your computer, like in years, ahead.
Yep.
So that's nice. And go multimedia. I don't know if I love this one. I've seen video slideshows on YouTube of like people's vacation pictures, and perhaps it's just because they're not my family or people that I know, or that they're not that relevant to me, but I don't find them that interesting. I don't find video slideshows that interesting. So, but maybe I'm alone in that one.
Depends on how much music and fun they have with them. I think that there are times where they can be quite good. And that's another thing that Google Plus will do for you, create those little story articles like that. So,
is this what you were going to talk about after?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I read it to you?
Sure.
The headline, and then you give us your opinion.
I will give my very strong
There's an
opinion.
article on Outside that I ran across the other day. It's Outside Magazine. It says, the headline says, "Stop taking vertical photos." And to summarize in a sentence or two, it's basically like the web is a horizontal medium. We got wide screens, everything's going that direction. Vertical photos have no place in it. Instagram's gone square. This person thinks that they're going to ditch that at some point in the near future and go wide as well. And I wanted your opinion on, should we stop taking vertical photos, because everybody's looking at them on a horizontal screen.
I say no. First of all, there is still print media out there. Just because it's a dying medium doesn't mean that there isn't any more print media. I mean, doesn't Outside print?
Yes.
Like magazines?
Yes. And in what format? Portrait.
Yeah.
A magazine is portrait orientation.
Yeah, so you should take not only vertical photos, but you should probably take both. if you're shooting for editorial purposes or any purposes. Secondly, these are vertical portrait orientation. And I know that you can flip them sometimes to look horizontally, but I mean, this is how you browse most of the time. So, and iPads are the same.
Well, but you can turn iPads on its side, and the new iPhone 6 Plus you can turn on its side for browsing as well.
Well, yes, you can, but a lot of the times you do, because it's way easier to hold the phone like this than to hold it like that.
Yep.
So,
let me ask you this before I give people a summary of what the comments say. What about video? Portrait versus landscape?
Yeah, video is different because as soon as you do this with video, you're cutting out like everything. So, yeah, vertical video is awkward. Don't do that.
It's terrible.
We should send them to that video. That's like a really funny video.
Oh, you're right. I think I know what you mean. So the summary of the comments to this guy are, you are an idiot. It's pretty funny. And they found his website, which wasn't so hard. His name is Grayson Schaefer, graysonschaefer.com. You go to graysonschaefer.com, you go to his recent work, which actually the most recent work he has posted on there is as of 2012. He's got portrait orientation pictures.
Yeah, because that's how you take a lot of portraits.
Right.
Like magazine covers are short in portrait orientation. It's just link bait. That was link bait, wasn't it?
It basically is. Let me ask you this. Are landscape orientation portraits acceptable?
Landscape?
Like a portrait of a person in landscape.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's called an environmental portrait.
Usually, yeah. Because you're including a little bit more of the environment.
Yeah. That's totally acceptable, but it's not the only thing. And it's not the only way to take portraits.
Okay. Next. What's next?
Oh.
Next is reader questions.
Oh, right.
We have some reader questions. I love this from Angela. It's not really a question, it's a comment. We were actually just talking about this the other day. Now that she's learning photography, she's starting to notice light in TV shows and movies more.
Oh, yes.
And, she's like, what's making that blue light? It's not coming from the sky, it's coming from underneath of him. We notice that a lot. Rim lighting, they use that in Hollywood a lot. That's where you'll have nice little hair light is another term for it as well. Or wait, are rim light and hair light the same thing?
They're basically the same. I think rim light's supposed to be more from the side and hair light's supposed to be like right what we've got up there.
Okay. And so you'll see that, right along here, and a lot of times it's supposed to be the sun, but it almost never is actually the sun. If you've ever seen behind the scenes of some of these sets, the light and the scrims, the giant white sheets that they use to control the light very carefully, it's impressive. What I was noticing is actually, we don't have TV here in this house, so we don't see local news very often, but just at my mom's this week, seeing a little bit of local news, and the quality, this is in Baltimore, so pretty big news organizations, and the quality of some of the shots was really poor. Not necessarily like, the pixely, but just the lighting and what was happening in the shot, why they're talking, really wasn't very impressive. And so I noticed that, and I look at what we do here on our limited budget, and I'm like, looks pretty good. But then again, I don't have to be super mobile all the time, and coming to you from the corner of where he said bad guys. He said the bad guys rigged the machine.
Well, but then also, based on my experience I had a friend in college who he wanted to go out into news, being a news anchor, and his thing was like, I have to start in a really small town in the middle of nowhere to actually get a job. So I think that a lot of these people in these local news networks are kind of not amateurs, but maybe right out of college, still learning. Not all of them, obviously. I've seen some nicely lit videos from news, but yeah, I think now that we are a part of this, creating these videos, and light can really make a difference on the perception of the video, how it's perceived, whether it's professional or not. I think we're a lot more sensitive to noticing it. But I remember when I first learned about the different types of lighting and started to observe lighting for photography, and I'd be watching TV, and I could not notice light. I would just notice it everywhere. So yeah, it's kind of fun. It's kind of cool.
Gabe says, is the iPhone 6 video better than what Canon's offering besides their 4K cameras? 240 FPS is pretty good.
Define better, though.
That's right. Define better. Well, I'm going to reach across you, excuse me, and say, first off, you're almost always going to have this phone with you and camera with you. And on that respect, yes, it's better. Because whatever camera you got with you is better than no camera at all. 240 frames per second, very impressive. But remember, even Apple's, doing magic here with their cameras and their lenses. That sensor in there, my fingernail here makes that sensor look gigantic. I mean, that sensor is just so small. When you compare it to something like a Canon, a DSLR, that sensor is so much bigger that as light levels drop, these cameras are capable of producing better images. Whether or not you go into a club and take a couple of pictures with this and a couple of pictures of that, you may get pictures that look better on the surface with an iPhone, but you're really going to be able to take the opportunity, the potential, that's what I was looking for, the potential is there to take better pictures. On the video side, yeah, I mean, you can't do any magic that makes 30 frames or 60 frames like 240 to slow it down. That's going to give you more data, more information, and so in that respect, it is better. Yeah.
Was that the last question? I was just looking through and
No.
I don't really see.
There is just any tips on taking group family photos, and JCB suggested this, and I've actually never heard this, but it sounds good to me. The focal length should be inversely proportional to the number of family members. Meaning if you're taking a picture of one person, 100 millimeters. If you're taking a picture of two people, what would that be next? 50 millimeters, right? No.
Yeah.
What's the inverse? Inverse proportional. I just let you all know that I'm very bad at math. Well, 20 people should be 24 millimeters or something like that. Look at the inverse proportion.
Well,
I mean, that's a decent rule of thumb from the standpoint of longer focal lengths for smaller groups.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I use my 7200 for large groups if I have enough room to back up because it compresses a lot of the background, and sometimes in situations where there's a lot of distracting things around, it helps me just narrow in into the people that are in the photos. So, but yeah, I mean that does seem like a good rule of thumb. You just have to have a really clean background. Although I don't know how you would shoot 20 people at anything at any focal length, like beyond 50 or even at 50. 20 people is a lot of people.
Right. Well, it's 24.
You have to back up a lot.
According to JCB, that would be 24.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is about right. Right. So other tips, though, I mean, we talked a little bit about this last week, but you mentioned background. I think you're looking for your light. That's what I've learned now, being a more professional photographer than in the past. And when you take this group out, you don't necessarily worry about the background other than making sure there's no real big distracting objects back there that are going to catch people's eyes or be growing out of people's heads. But you're looking for the light where it's going to be coming from the back. It's got some direction to it, but no one's going to have light splotches on their face. Yeah. So you turn them so that they're all evenly lit. Get them tight together. That's another tip. The lenses exaggerate space between people, and so what might look like a comfortable standing distance in the picture might look like this family hates each other because they're all got this big gap. So really have them get in close together. That also lets you use that little bit of a longer focal length to kind of compress the background and get a little more pleasing of a look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and just from going back to the light part is, when you're taking portraits of people, they kind of expect you to make them look good. So, the very first thing that you should be looking for is really good light. So.
Yep. Two quick more ones is Slasher says when he's recording the TV screen, the LCD on his camera will have flickering light. Yes, so that is the megahertz refresh rate of your screen versus the frame rate you're recording on your camera, try changing your frame rate and or changing the frame rate of your TV if you have the option to do that. Computer monitors you do, TVs not as often an option. That may fix that. And then the last question. Battery grips, third party from Fran. Looking to buy a 70D battery grip. Are third parties okay? I've always bought third parties, except for that moment. If those of you who have been following closely, I had that moment of freak out where I thought the inside of the battery grip was not nearly as metal reinforced as the actual one, and then later I looked and it was totally fine. I don't know what was going on. It was a long wedding. Maybe that was the reason. Yes, third parties are fine. They might not feel as good. The AF on button on my third party 5D Mark III is a little lumpier than yours. Yours feels a little nicer, but it works just the same. It saved me $200. So, and Fran, you said specifically the newer brand. Yep, I know that brand. I haven't specifically inspected that 70D's third-party newer brand one, but I'm sure it's fine. I think that's a good place to say.
Sounds great.
Check your third-party battery grips. No, to say goodbye. Here's our Flickr picks of the week. And we had a good image critique that wrapped up the composition last week, and we'll have a new assignment soon. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.